but this doesn't actually have anything to do with whether or not Hamas uses human shields. You may say that not all the civilian deaths are because Hamas uses human shields, okay? It doesn't have anything to do with whether or not Hamas uses human shields. It's entirely possible that they use human shields and that Israel targets people in their private homes. As a member of a organized armed group, you are liable for status-based targeting. That means no matter where you are, you can be attacked. You can be killed in your sleep. That's perfectly fine under international law. But if you are arguing an attack is disproportionate, then you already accept that it's lawfully directed at a military target. It just had too high incidental deaths. The fighting in northern Gaza was going to be more intense than the fighting in southern Gaza. So Israel had an obligation to warn people to move to southern Gaza. That does not imply that all of southern Gaza is a designated safe zone. Israel doesn't even have the power to declare safe zones. Safe zones can't be unilaterally declared, because if a safe zone was unilaterally declared, Hamas would just operate out of that safe zone, like they do anyway. They operate out of refugee camps, okay? I know from what I've read that Hamas operates out of the Jabalia refugee camp. Debunking human shields. Easy. I saw like the first 2 minutes of this or whatever it's at. He didn't seem to be making very good arguments.
Well, of course I had to take...
I don't know. I'm not that good at video games.
the time to talk about the recent report from Plus 972 and Local Call about the Lavender program, an artificial intelligence-based system which generates kill lists. I've read a lot of very upsetting...
you know, I have to look it up too, because I actually do not trust this guy to represent the article properly. 972. What was it? Lavender? AI machine directing Israel's bombs. Israeli armies marked tens of thousands of Gazan suspects for assassination.
Throughout this genocide taking place in the Gaza Strip, I've made a lot of videos about them. Though this one stands out as among the most chilling of reports.
You know what? I'm a big Fallout 76 fan. I should get back into Fallout 76. I have like 300 hours in Fallout 76. Not 300. I have like 100 on Steam, and I don't know how many I have on Bethesda because they shut down their launcher and I can't check. But it was a lot.
That I have ever read in my entire life.
Like maybe 200 hours at most. This is his fucking Patreon, bro. I thought this would be something interesting. This is his Patreon. I scanned it. It's just his Patreon. Dude, this guy is making obscene amount of money too. Oh, it doesn't even tell me. It doesn't tell you how many members he has. But the lowest tier is $5 a month. This has 30 likes, 6 likes, 43 likes, 27 likes. Jesus.
Perfect debunking of the Israeli claim that the high number of civilian casualties in its massive bombing of the Gaza Strip is a result of Hamas using them as so-called human shields. I've not taken much time to address the Israeli human shields claim, since logically it was so stupid. Even granting, in theory, Hamas shelters under hospitals or refugee camps, and that's why Israel has to bomb them.
They definitely are in refugee camps. The hospital thing is a little more contentious, but they 100% are in refugee camps.
Israel dropping enough bombs on this tiny enclave more than any bombing campaign of the current century.
Robert Pate is a professor of political science at the University of Chicago. You've studied extensively on the issue of coercive bombing.
I've studied every strategic bombing campaign since World War I. What I can tell you is that Israel's bombing campaign is one of the most intense civilian punishment campaigns in history. We are seeing one of the most intense civilian bombing campaigns in history.
He doesn't actually, like, oh, hey, play with my balls. He doesn't actually provide, like, any evidence in this. I mean, maybe he has evidence somewhere. It's just not in this video. And maybe he'll get into it later in this video. Like, Israel is targeting civilians. Because that's it. That's the implication when you say civilian bombing campaign.
History.
Destroying it worse than World War II Germany obviously renders...
Fortunately, the Allied bombing
human shields completely meaningless. This is what I knew before reading the new report from 972 and Local Call. The reality, much to my surprise, is even worse. The article's author, Yuval Abraham, explains how the Israeli Defense Forces felt about 972 and Local Call's reporting. In a statement to 972 and Local Call, The IDF spokesperson claimed in response to this article that Hamas places its operatives and military assets in the heart of the civilian population,
True.
systematically uses the civilian population as human shields,
A little more contentious, but if there ever were a case of human shielding, what's up? What's up? This would be the case of it.
and conducts fighting from within civilian structures,
True.
including sensitive sites such as hospitals, mosques, schools, and UN facilities.
True.
The IDF is bound by and acts according to international law, directing its
Mostly true, but
attacks only
most is really popular. Bro, the thing is, Israel can have bases close to civilian populations. Israel still has military bases. Hamas doesn't actually have military structures. They operate exclusively out of civilian structures. You can't beat Ghosts and Goblins. You get a free pass to heaven. I don't know what Ghosts and Goblins is. Japanese. Oh, I'm pretty sure I've seen this. There's no way. I'm not even good at video games. For the amount of times I play for the amount of hours I spend playing video games, you would think I'd be a lot better.
military targets and military operatives.
Little,
However, in
you already know how I determine my stance.
contrast
Yeah, I
to the
already know.
Israeli army's official statements, sources explained that a major source for the unprecedented death toll from Israel's current bombardment is the fact that the army has systematically attacked targets in their private homes.
This is perfectly fine. As a member of what's called an organized armed group, okay? First of all, even if Israel did this doesn't actually debunk that, well, Israel does do this, but this doesn't actually have anything to do with whether or not Hamas uses human shields. You may say that not all the civilian deaths are because Hamas uses human shields, okay? Because Israel also targets people in their private homes, and that's not human shielding. But whether or not they do that, which I think they probably do. I haven't done the research, but whatever. That doesn't have anything to do with whether or not Hamas uses human shields. It's entirely possible that they use human shields and that Israel targets people in their private homes. Secondly, it's perfectly fine under international law, at least, to target people in their private homes. As a member of a organized armed group, okay, you are liable for status-based targeting. That means no matter where you are, you can be attacked. You can be killed in your sleep. That's perfectly fine under international law. Israel has the right, at least under international law, to kill a Hamas member in their sleep, okay? There is a proportionality aspect of it, okay? So, if a Hamas member is in his private home with all of his family, okay, there is a proportionality aspect. Israel does have an obligation to weigh, well, first of all, they have an obligation to warn when feasible. They have to warn people to get out of the building when it's feasible to do so. And secondly, they have an obligation to do proportionality analysis in a way is the concrete military gain of killing this Hamas member worth the civilian casualties. So if you want to say an attack is disproportionate, you can do that. That's fine. And we could have that discussion. Yeah. But if you are arguing an attack is disproportionate, then you already accept that it's lawfully directed at a military target. It just had too high incidental deaths. Yeah.
Alongside their families, in part because it was easier from an intelligence standpoint to mark family houses using automated systems. Aside from revealing the existence of Lavender, 972 and Local Call also unearthed a system Israeli forces used to trace Hamas officials.
What about the IDF? I think it's very well organized and fund a militant group with a religious belief. I mean, it's definitely. I mean, it's not a militant group though. It's like it's an actual army. It's a thing. And it's not like officially a religious organization. Like you can take, like a lot of people in it obviously have religious beliefs because Israel is obviously a Jewish nation, but it doesn't, its goal is literally not to wage jihad like Hamas says. Its founding charter does not say kill the Palestinians. What's the difference? I just explained to you the difference.
Their private homes. You see, rather than making painstaking...
What's jihad? Jihad is basically a term people use. I think jihad technically just means struggle, right? Or it means holy war. Yeah. Striving to do one's utmost. Usually when people say jihad, they refer to like their mean extremist whose goal is basically to in this context it would be kill like the Israelis. Kill all the Israelis regardless of whether or not they're civilians. That's what when people say jihad, that's usually what they mean in this context.
decisions about how many civilians to blow up when targeting a Hamas terrorist cowardly
So this is proportionality.
shielding himself in a school, the Israeli military has made the decision to go after targets in what can only be described as the most cowardly way possible.
Again, the attack still has to be proportional, but it's fine to kill people in their homes as a member of an organized armed group. They're liable for status-based targeting no matter where they are.
Middle of the night when he's sleeping with his entire family.
Again, liable for status-based targeting.
They call it Where's Daddy? We're not
Okay, I stopped watching around here, so this is new stuff to me. Past this point, I have not pre-watched.
interested in killing Hamas operatives only when they were in a military building or engaged
Again, so number one, again, status-based targeting.
in a military.
They're liable for status-based targeting. So, something, people that aren't members of an organized armed group, let's say like civilians in Gaza. There were cases where civilians in Gaza went past the Gaza border fence and attacked Israelis and took Israelis hostages, okay? Those civilians were liable for targeting for such time that they took part in hostilities, meaning for such time that they were directly attacking Israelis or taking Israelis hostages. Those civilians could be killed because they were directly taking part in hostilities. But as a member of an organized armed group, you're not just liable for targeting. While you're engaging in hostilities, you're liable for targeting anywhere. You're liable for status-based targeting as a member of an organized armed group.
Activity, an intelligence officer told 972 and Local Call. On the contrary, the IDF bombed them in homes without hesitation as a first option. It's much easier to bomb a family's home. The system is built to look for them in these situations.
Again, so, I mean, this is just a feasibility thing. If it's easier for Israel to kill Hamas members when they're at home, then Israel is going to kill Hamas members when they're at home. Now, sometimes, okay, again, it has to be proportional. Obviously, it should be proportional. But it may even, I would be interested to see, since Hamas does operate out of civilian infrastructure, if there's Hamas commanders in a basement of an apartment building, it could be the case that striking a Hamas commander while he's in a military structure, which in Gaza is just a civilian structure that has a dual military purpose, it could be the case that striking that structure would cause more civilian deaths than just striking the private home of a Hamas commander. That could be the case.
Where's Daddy acted as a home tracking system. A explained the marked person would be placed under ongoing surveillance and could be attacked as soon as they set foot in their home, collapsing the house on everyone inside. Let's say
I think it's kind of a fuck around and find out type of situation. Thank you, Kim Jong-un, nutsack
calculate
one.
that there is one Hamas operative plus 10 civilians in the house, A said. Usually these 10 will be women and children. So absurdly, it turns out that most of the people you killed were women and children.
This is proportionality. These people, I don't know if you still understand what proportionality is.
Checks out.
About how many Palestinian women and children have been killed by Israel since October 7th?
It's over 25,000.
According to another source in the story, B, a senior officer who used Lavender, at 5 a.m., the Air Force would come and bomb all the houses that we had marked. We took out thousands of people. We didn't go through them one by one. We put everything into automated systems.
This might be a little cringe, okay? Depending on how exactly they mark the homes, maybe it would be a failure in distinction. Maybe you can make that argument.
Unsurprisingly, this surveillance of targets and tracing them to their homes was fundamentally flawed and
I guess it wouldn't be a failure in distinction. Sorry, it would be a failure in proportionality. If they didn't actually do proportionality analysis for these, it would be a failure in proportionality. Okay.
number of tragic ways. According to B, most of the mistakes caused by Lavender occurred if the Hamas target gave his phone to his son, his older brother, or just a random man. That person will be bombed in his house with his family. This happened often.
So that's bad. Okay. Something like this, maybe you could even classify as reckless. Okay. Recklessness is not the state of mind necessary for genocide. Special intent is necessary for genocide. Recklessness, I guess it would be a failure in proportionality, probably, right? Because recklessness, the dolus eventialis, dolus eventialis has more to do. Hold on, okay. And this. reason indiscriminate attacks to the first target. So like indiscriminate isn't directly. Yeah, indiscriminate has more to do with proportionality than it does with intentional targeting civilians. So I think the implication, Article 51, Section 5 of Additional Protocol 1, is only to lay down the weapons as well. You have to be acting with purpose in order to be accused of targeting civilians. Okay, so dolus eventialis, or acting with recklessness, has more to do with disproportionality than it does with intentionally targeting civilians. Then in context of double effect, mental state, intent clearly tracks with the mental state of acting purpose. Like, I want to find a specific article. Oh, here it is. Okay. Even if collateral damage is foreseen, it does not fall under the definition of intent associated with Article 51, Section 2 of the Additional Protocol states the civilian population, as well as individual civilians, shall not be made the object of attack. Attacks or threats of violence, acts of threats of violence, the primary purpose of which is to spread terror among the civilian populations, is prohibited. So the phrase is directed and shall not be made the object of attack. Suggests a volitional component associated with purpose rather than just knowledge. So even dolus indirect is one count here. But yeah, dolus eventialis, which is the recklessness state of mind, has to do more with proportionality than it does distinction. Okay, so Israel still wouldn't be targeting civilians; they would just be recklessly engaging indiscriminate attacks, which is disproportionate and bad. Still bad, okay, but different.
One source described a similar incident that affected him and made him want to be interviewed for this investigation. We understood that the target was home at 8 p.m. In the end, the Air Force bombed the house at 3 a.m. Then we found out in that span of time he had managed to move himself to another house with his family. There were 2 other families with children in the building we bombed.
Okay, so recklessness.
It happened.
That's bad. That's cringe. Israel should do more to stop it.
Many times that
it's not genocide, though. It's just not genocide.
We attacked a house.
It's just disproportionate. See the European man always plays with words. His claim is that this proves a genocide, or this proves Hamas isn't using human shields. Neither of those claims follow from the factual claims he's making. Assuming his claims are factuals, those 2 statements, that Israel's either committing genocide or that Hamas doesn't use human shields, is a non sequitur. That's what I'm criticizing here, okay? Me and this guy could agree that what Israel's doing here, at least if it is true, which probably is, I don't have any reason to doubt it, would be bad, okay? It's bad, it's disproportionate, but it's not genocide.
But the person wasn't even home.
And it might not even, it's not a failure in distinction, it's a failure in proportionality.
One source said. The result is that you killed a family for no reason. The number of targets feverishly generated by officers seeking to pad their kill lists grew to as many as 37,000. People who, in theory, were to be bombed in their private residences, killing many more uninvolved and innocent women and children. Tens of thousands were generated by lowering the threshold for targeting used in previous Israeli massacres.
Wait, I'm curious why they didn't do all those strikes, because
as many as 37,000. People who,
he said they made this list,
in theory, were to be bombed in their private residence.
But then they didn't do it?
Killing many more
He would have to go into the reason why they didn't do it. Because if it's possible that they didn't do it because the rate of civilian casualties would be too high.
Involved in innocent women and children. Tens of thousands were generated by lowering the threshold for targeting used in previous Israeli massacres in the Gaza Strip, such as
previous Israeli massacres in the Gaza Strip. Thank you, GDF.
In 2008 and 9 and 2014. AI-generated targeting is a very recent phenomenon, and a model for the current onslaught in Gaza can be found in the widespread bombing of the Strip in 2021, what Israel dubbed Guardian of the Walls. The first digital war, in the words of Unit 8200 data science and AI commander Colonel Yoav. According to Yoav, who was speaking at the AI conference at Tel Aviv University, the IDF was able to target at least one of the Hamas squad missile commanders and one of the Hamas anti-tank missile units using data science and AI capabilities. In all, he said new digital methods helped produce 200 new target assets during the 10-day operation. With the technological developments brought by the 2021 bombing campaign and the Israeli bloodlust following October 7th, a drastic change in Israeli military policy would help produce the staggering and unprecedented casualty figures we see today, 972 and local call found. In the past, the military did not authorize any collateral damage during assassinations of low-ranking militants.
Any collateral damage, there's always foreseeable collateral damage with some strikes. But, again, I hate how this guy does this. Because there's legitimate criticisms to be had here. You could make this video, and if he just said, you know what? I think it's really bad that Israel lowered their standard for the acceptable amount of collateral damage. You know, previously, during previous operations, low-level Hamas militants, not much collateral damage was authorized for them, you know. But now it seems like Israel's been more willing to kill civilians just to get rid of low-level Hamas commanders, and I think that's fucked up. That's a valid argument, okay? But he's not making that argument. That's why I hate this guy so much, okay? His argument is that this proves either a genocide or targeting civilians. It's just not true. This is a failure in proportionality. If you want to make a claim that says I think this is fucked up, I think this is disproportionate, okay? Then make that claim. I'm fine with that. I could engage with that.
In an unprecedented move, according to two of the sources, the army has decided during the first weeks of the war that for every junior Hamas operative that Lavender marked, it was permissible to kill up to 15 or 20 civilians.
Junior level, yeah. See, this is so this is pretty high. So I think in the war in Afghanistan, we had something called non-combatant civilian cutoff values. Okay, and even for like high-level commanders, usually it was like 14 to 15. So we couldn't kill more than like 14 or 15 civilians for a Taliban commander, okay? Now, the problem with Gaza is, because of how densely populated it is, it's hard to minimize civilian casualties to the same extent that Israel minimized we tried to minimize civilian casualties in Afghanistan. So, yeah, because Gaza is so densely populated, Hamas operates out of civilian infrastructure. Israel, by necessity, is going to always have higher non-civilian or non-combatant cutoff values because of the situation in Gaza. Now, you want to make an argument that maybe they're too high, which, by the way, 15 to 20 people to kill a low-level commander? I don't know exactly what it means by low-level. Is it... Junior Hamas operative. So what does this mean? I don't know exactly what junior Hamas operative means, but when I hear that, I think like a pretty low level dude. Like I think kind of just like an average dude, like an average Hamas militant. Yeah, but like, yeah, obviously because Gaza is so densely populated, so why doesn't Hamas leave the Gaza Strip and fight somewhere else? Oh, right. Well, Hamas, okay. Hamas can't leave the Gaza Strip, but Hamas could operate not out of the basements of buildings. Hamas could operate not operate out of UN schools, okay? That's entirely feasible for Hamas to do.
What's worse, according to the sources, when it came to targeting alleged junior militants marked by Lavender, the army preferred to only use unguided missiles, commonly known as dumb bombs, in contrast to smart precision bombs, which can destroy entire buildings on top of their...
Oh, also, because Gaza's so densely populated. That's why Israel has to do their fucking advanced warning shit, okay? Israel has a ton of warning systems that they seem to use effectively.
Occupants and cause significant casualties.
Dumb bomb.
You don't want to waste expensive bombs on unimportant people. It's very expensive for the country, and there's a shortage of those bombs.
Okay, there's a feasibility aspect of like weaponeering. Okay, hold on. Where exactly? Somewhere that doesn't make... Okay. My brother in Christ. I've had this argument before. So many times before. Let's just go to Google Maps. Let's just look at the Gaza Strip. Now, the Gaza Strip is densely populated, okay? But it's not like there's empty places. There are no empty places in the Gaza Strip, okay? There are places where Hamas could set up military bases, okay? Yeah. And none of the... By the way, they operate out of refugee camps, like the Jabalia refugee camp. They operate out of that. You're not allowed to do that. That's a war crime. Yeah, Hamas is clearly failing in the passive precautions that they have an obligation to take. What was I gonna say? Oh, there's a feasibility component to like weaponeering, okay? So you want them to set up military bases in a field where they're completely surrounded by an adversary with sophisticated espionage. Bro, if that would reduce civilian casualties, yes. I don't understand the argument, okay? The fact that Israel has military bases, clearly marked military bases, that aren't... You can say they're close to civilian areas, but they aren't co-located with civilians, okay? Israel's military bases are not co-located with civilians. Israel has military bases that are just military bases, okay? That obviously makes it easier for Hamas to target those military bases. But guess what? You have an obligation to take passive precautions to separate military and civilian infrastructure, okay? Hamas is failing in that obligation. Hamas is clearly failing in that obligation. You can say, I got my answer. Yes, you want them to lose. They don't. I do want Hamas to lose. Yes, I want Hamas to surrender and release the hostages. That is accurate. Yes. But I don't understand. What you're doing is justifying a war crime. That's all you're doing, bro. You can... I want you to know that, like, you doing that is justifying a war crime. Yeah.
Said C, one of the intelligence officers. Another source said that they had personally authorized the bombing of hundreds of private homes of alleged junior operatives marked by lavender, with many of these attacks killing civilians and entire families as collateral damage. It was very surprising for me that we were asked to bomb a house to kill a ground soldier, whose importance in the fighting was so low, said one source about the use of...
See, this would be an example of a disproportionate attack, okay? Because the direct and concrete military gain isn't worth all the, doesn't outweigh the damage to civilian and civilian objects.
AI to mark alleged low-ranking militants. I nicknamed those targets garbage targets. Still, I found them more ethical than the targets that we bombed just for deterrence. High-rises that are evacuated and toppled just to cause destruction.
Well, so something Israel does is, like, they warn buildings to evacuate before bombing the building, because that building is being used for a military purpose. And Israel doesn't necessarily need to kill the Hamas members in it. It just needs the building gone because the building is being used for a military purpose. So Israel will warn the building to evacuate and then bomb it to get rid of the infrastructure there. Israel has been committing war crimes for decades, including collective punishment. Some argue it's actually Israel's responsibility because Gazans are captives. So true, man. If you're gonna have to guess, just how many people do you think crossed from, how many, like, monthly crossings on average do you think there was from Gaza to Israel in the Erez crossing in 2019? Like, just how many monthly crossings before COVID? Yeah. Like, do you think, how many Gazan merchants do you think, like, came into Israel to work? Like, how many people do you think it was? If you, like, just throw out a number, man. How many people crossed into Israel from Gaza? Monthly, on average. Let me pull it up here so you can't see it, but I can bring it. I mean, he's not answering, but the number is like, there were like multiple thousands of people going in and out like every month. Yeah. This isn't the graph I'm looking for, but you can see here. 2019, 100,000 entries. Israel's proudly, so you're just not answering my question at all, but Israel proudly advertises they let Gazans leave the strip to work for them. I don't pretend to know the number, but it doesn't change anything for me. You're saying Gazans are captives. Okay. But then you also say, but then we also look at the numbers, and it's like 30,000 people are crossing a month. Doesn't that kind of suggest that they aren't captives? Doesn't that kind of suggest that there are ways for people to leave? Like, look at this. Like, year 2019 before COVID. 17,000? This is, you know, this is in Israel. This is the Erez crossing. In recent years, Israel permitted Palestinian workers to apply for Erez crossing and narrow circumstances. 1, workers of trade. 2, medical patients. Yeah. 3, other exceptional humanitarian causes, including people traveling to the wedding, a funeral, a first-degree relative. Yeah. Yes, prisons have work release programs. Big whoop. Oh my god, bro. It's just like, I don't understand like what evidence I could show you that is like anything I show you, you're just gonna be like, oh, so just because this one thing is true doesn't mean it's not an open air prison. Like, it seems like the life expectancy 72.5 years in 2006. 50th percentile. Really, it's more to the point that these people are under collective punishment. They have to receive permission from Israel to leave. So why do you think that's true of, why do you think the people in the Gaza Strip are under a bigger blockade than the people in the West Bank? The people in the West Bank aren't really under a blockade. There's like some restrictions, but they aren't really under blockade the same way Gaza is. And why do you think Egypt enforces the blockade too? So those are two things. Egypt enforces the blockade. Why is that? And why are people in Gaza under way more restrictions than people in the West Bank? You know, thanks, man. Aji, I don't know how to pronounce that last name, man. I have no clue, man. Not even gonna lie. I'm just gonna be straight up. I think that's probably a sub from YouTube Shorts. Sounded out from that hurt. Listen, I don't even think he's here because I don't have any YouTube viewers. I think it's from YouTube Shorts. I don't think I can tell who subs from the live stream and who just subs from Shorts. Yeah, but the life expectancy in Gaza doesn't seem to be that low. Infant mortality, 14.9 per 100,000, 43rd percentile nations worldwide, and much better than the global average, which was 28 in 2021. Then we talk about how Israel has far more control of the West Bank last time. Oh, you're the same guy from last time. And Egypt was at war with Israel. Bro, the treaty does not require that Egypt blockade Gaza in the way that it does. That's just not true. And that the Rafah crossing has been bombed. Israel mistakenly struck Egyptian targets at the border. If you can prove otherwise, I'd be lovely to hear it. But the onus is on you to prove that it was intentional, or at least provide a motivation for why they did it. And we talk about Israel has much more control in the West Bank last time. Israel does not blockade the West Bank in the same way they blockade Gaza. And also, in areas A and B, Israel doesn't even have control of the West Bank. Well, in B, they have a little bit of security control. But in Area A, they don't have any control. Yeah. Also, the life expectancy and infant mortality seem to be pretty good. Gaza had an under 5 mortality rate of 26.8. At the time, the World Bank put the overall under 5 mortality rate for the Middle East and North Africa at 27.6, would make Gaza slightly better than the average in the region. I don't know. I mean, seems like the conditions in the Gaza Strip are not significantly worse than any other place in the region. There's a decades of history about the border. Just don't be fooled by the suggestion that it's entirely controlled by Egypt. It's not entirely controlled by Egypt, okay? Israel still, I think, like, inspects the aid going through. But Egypt doesn't have to do that. Egypt could be letting more aid in if it wanted to. Like, this is up to Egypt at the end of the day. And obviously the only reason is not just because Egypt is some puppet of the US or anything. Obviously, Egypt has concerns about Hamas operating out of the Sinai. That's what they're concerned about. Or Palestinians trying to coup Sisi, which has happened before in in Lebanon and Jordan. The Palestinians try to coup them there. These data are basically correct. The pre-war conditions in Gaza were similar to that of a middle developing nation. If true, the depictions of Gaza similar to a concentration camp or open-air prison begin to sound absurd. We should assume the laundry list of facts seeming to support this picture from bad scholarship or cherry picking. Surely a concentration camp or an open-air prison would not yield a population with health metrics above the global average, on par with all the Arab nations surrounding it. Or the data here is wrong and misleading in some way. This is hardly impossible considering how sparse they are to begin with. But if they are misleading, it would behoove Finkelstein and others to describe Gaza as a hellhole to explain in detail why these data, largely from Palestinian sources, are misleading. Egypt doesn't want to help with ethnic cleansing, so it doesn't cooperate with Israel's attempts to drive civilians into the Sinai. True. Are you seriously suggesting that's the only reason? You understand, Hamas operates out of refugee camps. They have a history of doing this, okay? They are currently doing it. So if Egypt opens a refugee camp in the Sinai, okay, you understand, Hamas will likely operate out of that refugee camp, which means now Hamas is operating out of Egyptian territory. That's what Egypt's scared of, okay?
This was reported by 972 and Local Call in November of 2020.
We're only, there's 20 minutes left of this video, goddamn.
In a bombshell article about the widespread use of a system called Habzora, or the Gospel. These bombings, which were intended solely to cause destruction, were aimed at private residences as well as public buildings, infrastructure, and high-rise blocks, which sources say the army defines as power targets. According to intelligence sources who had first-hand experience with its application in Gaza in the past, it is mainly intended to harm Palestinian civil society, to create a shock that, among other things, will
Morale bombing's bad. They're doing it. That's bad.
Powerfully and lead civilians to put pressure on Hamas, as one source put it. As opposed to gospel.
Talking about Hamas like it's some evil terrorist organization hiding among civilians. Basically what it is, man. Hate to break it to you. But basically, that's what it is. In reality, it's a political faction that Israel supported to destabilize the PLO. Hamas is not a political faction, okay? No, they are a terrorist organization. They have a political wing that controls the Gaza Strip, okay? They're a terrorist organization. They're a jihadist organization, okay? I don't really like the word terrorism because there's no, like, good definition of what terrorism is, okay? But it's a jihadist organization that wants the destruction of Israel.
Use in targeting structures and whole neighborhood blocks.
And their charter says so.
Lavender, in conjunction with tracking technology like Where's Daddy, are used to place people on kill lists, along with including simple junior officers who were...
I need to do more research into this later. Our targets. Because Israel definitely has done... Israel's definitely done some cringe stuff in, like, when it comes to morale bombing. But even morale bombing is different than genocide. But I think morale bombing's cringe. Definitely illegal. Israel a terrorist organization? The US is a terrorist organization. Yada yada. Conor has killed the most children and get back to me. But yeah, we've been through this, but there's a difference between killing children as collateral damage, okay? And killing children intentionally. Okay? I don't know how your mind can't comprehend the difference. Okay? Doesn't matter. Just which has the biggest body count, okay? Because when it comes to the moral standing of the perpetrators, the intentions matter. If Israel had perfect weapons, okay? If Israel had a perfect weapon, meaning a weapon that could kill anyone, anytime, anywhere, okay? There's no reason to believe that Israel would kill even a single child. If Hamas had perfect weapons, they would kill everyone in Israel.
Were to be killed in their homes with their families. The list also at times reportedly included children. Another source said even some minors were marked by Lavender as targets for bombing. Normally, operatives are over the age of 17, but that was not a condition. 972 and Local Call give a detailed account of the several weeks of chaos that marked the beginning of the Gaza genocide, though chaos has continued, albeit with different characteristics. Sources told 972 and Local Call that now, partly due to American pressure, the Israeli army is no longer mass-generating junior human targets for bombing.
Thank you, Joe Biden. Base Biden.
In civilian homes. The fact that most homes in the Gaza Strip were already destroyed or damaged, and almost the entire population has been displaced, also impaired the Army's ability to rely on intelligence databases and automated house locating programs. Airstrikes against senior-ranking Hamas commanders are still ongoing, and sources said that for these attacks, the military is off.
You understand that many of us want to prevent everyone from killing children, right? Wait, yes, I would love to prevent people from killing children. Yes, I think Israel tries to minimize the number of children dead.
Authorizing the killing of hundreds.
But Hamas doesn't want to do that. Hamas paraglided into a music festival and killed people.
of civilians per target. An official policy for which there is no historical precedent in Israel or even in recent U.S. military operations. In the bombing of the commander of the Shujaya battalion of civilians, and sources said that for these attacks, the military is authorizing the killing of hundreds of civilians per.
So again, there's a feasibility aspect of like minimizing civilian deaths. So it may, because of how densely populated Gaza is, because of how Hamas operates, it may only be feasible to do this. That's possible. He should at least acknowledge that possibility. I'm not answering that, GDF. And then, what was I going to say? Oh, and obviously for senior level commanders, there is a bigger direct and concrete military gain. So you do have to weigh that against the damage to civilian and civilian objects higher, right? What is the Israeli government get to say things like the children of Gaza brought it upon themselves then? Bro, oh my god, you're talking about one quote from a Knesset leader. That's a bad quote, okay? I haven't done the reading into that quote. But assuming that she really did think like the children in Gaza were all evil or whatever, that's a bad quote, okay? That Knesset leader should be fired or whatever, okay? I would hope you would acknowledge that for every one of those quotes, there's 10 quotes about how Israel says that they're minimizing civilian casualties. The reason why you don't believe those quotes is because you don't think Israel's actions line up with that, okay? The reason I don't believe quotes like that, the one you just said, is because I don't think Israel's actions line up with that quote, okay? We just look at the actions and see what actually Israel's actually doing. I don't really care about quotes.
Target. And
so many
official policy for which there is no historical precedent in Israel or even in recent U.S. military operations. In the bombing of the commander of the Shujaya battalion, we knew that we would kill over 100 civilians. Be recalled of a December 2nd bombing. In order to assassinate Ayman Nofal, the commander of Hamas's Central Gaza Brigade, a source said that the army authorized the killing of approximately 300 civilians, destroying several buildings and airstrikes on Al-Bureij refugee camp on October 7th.
Bro, this is showing me right now. They're operating out of a refugee camp, okay? If they're operating out of a refugee camp, unfortunately, it might only be feasible to do the strike while killing 300 civilians. That might be the only feasible thing to do because of how Hamas is literally operating out of a densely populated refugee camp. It really, really sucks that that's the only feasible thing to do. But oh my god, that blame falls more on the people operating out of refugee camps than it does with Israel. Okay.
17th. Though the Israeli military, again in a deviation from its conduct in previous bloodbaths in Gaza, have not even taken the trouble to accurately tally their killed. Indeed,
that is a violation. If that's true, well, hold on, wait.
Bloodbaths in
fallacy symmetry. If you say 100 times, you don't murder your neighbor. But then what? Oh my god. If you say 100 times, you didn't murder your neighbor, but one time you confess you did. The 100 denials don't balance out the 100 confessals. True. We're talking about quotes for people. The reason I don't think that the quote proves Israeli genocide or whatever is because Israel's actions don't line up with that.
In Gaza have not even taken Israeli military things and airstrikes on Al-Bureid refugee camp on October 17th.
Okay.
Though the
What was I going to say? Oh.
Israeli military, again in a deviation from its conduct in previous bloodbaths in Gaza, have not even taken the trouble to accurately tally their killed. Indeed, in years past, after bombing targets slated for assassination...
Okay. I thought he was talking about something else. Okay, he's just saying they don't tally the number of people killed. Okay. I don't think that is a violation of international law. Not running proportionality analysis is like not estimating how many civilians are going to be killed in a strike. That is against international law. But he's talking about after they do the strike if they tally the dead. Okay.
Israeli intelligence would typically carry out a bomb damage assessment, a routine post-strike check to see if the senior commander was killed and how many civilians were killed along with them. This reportedly involved listening in
they should probably still be
to
doing
phone
that.
calls of relatives who lost their loved ones. But this time round, sources say this procedure was abolished in order to save time. The sources said they did not know how many civilians were actually killed in each strike, and for the low-ranking suspected Hamas and PIG operatives marked by AI, they did not even know whether the target himself was killed. You don't know exactly how many you killed and who you killed, an intelligence source told Local Call. Only when it's senior Hamas operatives do you follow the BDA procedure. In the rest of the cases, you don't care. You get a report from the Air Force about whether the building was blown up, and that's it. You have no idea how much collateral damage there was. You immediately move on to the next target. The emphasis...
As long as they're running proportionality assessments before they do the strike, like as long as they say that we expect this many civilians to die, then I think that's under international law. That's fine. Now, in an ideal world, they definitely still would be doing that post-bomb assessment, just because even from their perspective, okay, it would definitely benefit to do that because then Israel would have better civilian casualty numbers than Gaza probably does. So they could actually put out the number of civilian casualties versus just relying on the Gaza Health Ministry, which might not have the most accurate numbers.
was to create as many targets as possible, as quickly as possible. And this is precisely why the Israeli military has itself relied almost exclusively on data from the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza, what all Western news essentially calls the Hamas-run Health Ministry. They have reproduced these figures in celebration of their perceived successes, writes UN Special Rapporteur for Human Rights in the Occupied Territories Francesca Albanese in her recent searing report, Anatomy of a Genocide. 70% of recorded deaths have consistently been women and children.
So I think one of the criticisms of the Hamas numbers, the number itself might not be bad, but I think the criticism is that the proportion of like males dead to women and children dead is probably not accurate. And there were a bunch of like statistical reasons that people had reasons to doubt it.
Israel failed to prove that the remaining 30%, i.e. adult males, were active Hamas combatants, a necessary condition for them to be lawfully targeted.
Okay, to be lawfully targeted to make the objects of attack, yes, they do have to be Hamas combatants, but they can be killed as collateral damage.
By early December, Israel security advisors claimed the killing of 7,000 terrorists, in a stage of the campaign when less than 5,000 adult males in total had been identified among the casualties, thus implying that all adult males killed were terrorists. This is indicative of an intent to indiscriminately target members of the protected group, assimilating them to active fighter status by default. Albanese further provides data which serves to substantiate the lethal targeting programs employed by Israel in Gaza. 70% of residential areas have been destroyed. Since October 7th, Israel has killed over 30,000 Palestinians in Gaza. By the end of February, a further 12,000 Palestinians were reported missing, presumed dead under the rubble. Indeed, any argument in favor of human shields suffers in light of the simply stated fact, stated in one cruel sentence of Francesca Albanese's report, that after 5 months of military operations, Israel has destroyed Gaza. Okay, surely another source of the astronomical...
But okay. Again, the term human shields I think is a little stupid, okay? Because there has to be like proven intent to shield. And the intent has to be there to stop Israel from striking their targets because of the like increasing in casualties. The intent can't even be to like increase the number of civilian casualties to win in the propaganda war. That can't even be the intent. The intent has to be to stop Israel from attacking you. Okay. And also the term human shields is cartoonish, okay? Because it literally brings up images of like holding someone in front of you, right? A better way would be saying Hamas co-locates with civilians. The reason why Gaza has been destroyed is because Hamas doesn't build military things. They co-locate with civilians, and they hide under tunnels, which are under buildings.
Israel has destroyed Gaza. Surely another source of the astronomical casualties was the bombing of areas officially deemed by Israel to be safe from bombing. Of the roughly 500 2,000-pound bombs dropped by Israel in the first 6 weeks of hostilities, Albanese writes, 42% were deployed in the designated safe zone.
That's not true, because there wasn't a designated safe zone in the southern areas. Israel warned people to move south from northern Gaza because the fighting in northern Gaza was going to be it is too emotionally loaded. The fighting in northern Gaza was going to be more intense than the fighting in southern Gaza. So Israel had an obligation to warn people to move to southern Gaza. That does not imply that all of southern Gaza is a designated safe zone. That's not true. In fact, Israel doesn't even have the power to declare safe zones. Safe zones can't be unilaterally declared, because if a safe zone was unilaterally declared, Hamas would just operate out of that safe zone, like they do anyway. They operate out of refugee camps, okay? Safe zones have to be set up by two parties. Hamas has not cooperated in setting up safe zones. In fact, Hamas, out of the areas Israel tries to make safe, and out of like Hamas has been operating out of them, like the refugee camps, okay?
In southern areas. As a result, by October 28th,
they warn people to go to southern Gaza because the fighting there would be less intense, but that does not imply that this entire thing is a safe zone.
2 weeks after Israel's mass evacuation order, about 38%
mass evacuation order, Jesus. It's just like stupid fucking all roads lead to ethnic cleansing. Israel doesn't warn people to go to southern Gaza. Well, that's genocide because they didn't even warn people before they attacked them, okay? Israel warns people to go to southern Gaza. Well, that's a mass evacuation order. It's like there's literally no path Israel could have taken where they didn't do something bad,
killings in
where
Gaza
it wasn't
occurred
ethnic
in the
cleansing.
declared safe zones by January.
It's not a declared. They are using the word safe zone so wrong. It's pissing me off. Oh my god.
42% were located in the area, which by then held the majority of the Gaza population. Simply put, safe areas were deliberately turned into areas of mass
That's not true.
killing.
Safe area, again, they're misusing the term safe area. Where is the safe zones? We read an article about this, and I don't remember exactly where it is. They did also, again, provide safe routes for civilians to leave. What's up, Big Dragon? Fuck, I don't know where it is, but we read the article about this. Israel or Palestine? Well, maybe watch the stream a little longer and you'll find out. But I don't know where it is. But basically, safe zones, again, can't be unilaterally declared. They have to be decided on by both sides, and Hamas is unwilling to decide on safe zones. So, yeah. So they are constantly lying when they say 43% were located in safe zones. Because just because they warn civilians to evacuate in southern Gaza does not mean all of southern Gaza is a safe zone. That's not how that works. So if members of the government expressing murderous intent, members of the military expressing murderous intent, a murderous sentiment in the society, members of Jesus of Christ, what would you do if you were in Israeli chat? What do you mean? What would I do if I was in Israeli chat? What? Murderous sentiment in the society, members of the society themselves are protesting against the brutality and themselves being beaten by government forces. Again, no, not like nobody likes Netanyahu, man. So obviously there's protesting Netanyahu's. Many thousands of dead children, many documented attacks on civilians with no empirical justification. You'd have to prove intent there. You'd have to prove that their special intent was to murder the civilians. It's true, like, okay. It's, there have been cases where Israeli forces on the ground, have killed civilians, but that's because Israel, the IDF is a conscript army, okay? The people there don't want to be there. The people there probably don't have the best training in the world. So obviously there are cases where they make mistakes. And it is fucked up. And they should stop fucking doing it, okay? And they have to be punished for doing it. But it's not indicative of a genocide. Many documented attacks on civilians from empirical justification, and even self-contradictions about attacks on civilians. And none is good enough for you. What is? You'd have to prove intent with more than just random quotes from Knesset leaders, some of which are out of context. Even in like the South Africa ICJ case, half the quotes that they used were taken out of context, okay? Yeah. I think you used the human animal quotes to me. The human animals quote does not prove genocidal intent at all, because again, human animals is just like a common phrase in Hebrew. Yeah. I can say here, I don't know, but like safe zones can't be unilaterally declared. So the ideas were heavily criticized by numbers of risks, not only due to a certain aspect, which were proven accurate, are legitimate concerns under existing IHL, but also, yeah, but it's an order or instruction. I see. Observed. I'm Israeli. Do you live in Israel right now? Instructions issued by the Israeli authorities for the population of Gaza City to immediately leave their homes. Yeah, I hope you're safe, man. I'm in Israel. So what are you? Are you pro-Israel or pro-Palestine then? Oh no, don't pay attention to what Gideok says. Don't pay attention to what Gideok says. I don't condone anything Gideok says, okay? I love my Israelis and I don't condone anything Gideok says. I'm just worried. Gideok hasn't said anything too bad yet, but I'm just warning you, okay? Gideok, I'm just warning you. Tread lightly. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm just, yeah, just asking questions. Just asking questions. Okay. A dragon, don't pay too much attention to what Gideok says. That I'm just warning.
Population. Simply put, safe areas were deliberately turned into areas of mass killing.
For these people to stand in a genocide is essentially any war crimes plus minorities and people in the government equals genocide. Yeah.
A report published in late March by UNICEF, Education Cluster, and Save the Children further substantiated the targeting of these so-called safe areas. They sadly report
safe areas
that of the 563 school buildings in Gaza,
Gideok's asked me weird personal questions too. It doesn't really make sense. I don't know why he does it.
212 have been directly hit by bombs. What?
Okay. What do they mean safe areas? This guy, earlier it seemed like he was implying that all in southern Gaza is not a safe area. Or is a safe area. But now it seems like he's talking about specific safe areas. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Who is this people? Did I even mention genocide? Okay. And none is good enough. Aren't you arguing genocide with when you said some members? Oh my god, some members of expressing murder's intent. Seems like there you're arguing genocide. Like seems like that chat message you were arguing genocide. But I'm also yelling at this video too, not just you. But now he's talking about like schools and stuff, which are safe areas in the sense that they are granted greater protection under international law. But if Hamas is using them as a military place, then Israel can lawfully target them. Almost anything can be turned into a lawful target. Yeah, you're asking, can we make out? And wow, you give really good head when you can
buildings in Gaza.
I'm against murdering children. Me too. Okay. Seems like it should be an easy position for everyone to take. It is an easy position for everyone to take. I'm against murdering civilians. I'm obviously against murdering civilians. Why do you think I'm for murdering civilians? I can't believe you think I'm for murdering civilians. So even proving one person's intent is proving the intent of the entire military. What? It's not even proving one person's intent, it's proving the intent of the entire military. You can't just prove one Israeli... That quote that you brought up, the Gazan children brought it above themselves, is from one person in the Israeli Knesset, okay? You have to prove... That's not proving the intent of everyone involved. Yeah, you have to prove intent more than that, bro. It's through explicit policy or something. Yes, there has to be in order to do a genocide, you have to have a policy of killing civilians, well, targeting civilians, for the purpose of targeting civilians.
212 have been directly hit by bombs.
Hold on, is this... I don't know where he's pulling this from.
165 of those were in areas designated for evacuation by the Israeli military.
Areas designated for evacuation. What does that mean?
Just days after October 7th, the Jerusalem Post reported that IDF...
Okay, hold on. What is he quoting from here?
...of these so-called...
Gaza war. Direct hit. Areas designated for evacuation by the Israeli military. Okay, what does it mean? I'm confused what it means. Designated for evacuation by the Israeli military. Because that, when you say designated for evacuation by the Israeli military, that makes it sound like they were like either in northern Gaza or some other area that was told to evacuate. I'm not answering that, GDF. I don't even know. It's just not relevant at all right now. I'm not answering that. Because when you say, yeah, designated for evacuation, that makes me think like they're in northern Gaza. And because they were in northern Gaza, they're designated for evacuation. So what would the response have been? So what would the response... who are you talking to, my dolphin? What would have been the appropriate response to the October 7th attack? Are you asking me? Jared, does it annoy you that people don't engage with the stream, they just choose to be racist? Jenny Alex engages with the stream so much. I don't know. What's the criteria then? You need to prove special intent of the military to specifically targeting civilians, okay? You can't just say one Israeli Knesset member. What's your real name? You can find out if you watch my content enough. Yeah, you can't just say one Israeli Knesset member made a genocidal statement. You have to prove special intent of like, if you're trying to charge as a specific person with genocide, for example, you have to prove that specific intent of like the military commander or whatever. Yeah. And if you're trying to prove it for Israel as a whole, you have to prove that Israel has some type of policy to target civilians for the purpose of targeting civilians.
Safe areas.
It's not Jacob.
They sadly report that of the 563
I can't hear properly? What do you mean you can't hear
school buildings
properly? What can you hear properly?
Gaza, 212 have been...
Oh shit, I didn't. It includes several concerning reports. Schools being used for military purposes. Uses attention interrogation centers at military bases. I mean, that's bad if that's true, but like, when they say like interrogation or whatever, that makes me think that there was Hamas operating out of that school, and then Israel like took the school from Hamas. That's what it makes me think. But maybe, I don't know. So Israeli has to, in your mind, is not get caught explicitly making it public policy to kill civilians. If you're making a claim that Israel is committing genocide, you have to prove Israel has a policy of targeting civilians for the purpose of targeting civilians. It's innocent until proven guilty. Yes, the burden of proof is on you to prove that Israel is committing a genocide. The burden of proof is not on me to convince you that Israel isn't committing a genocide. Your top 5 for streaming politics right now, also 12 years. Yeah. Twitch politics isn't doing too great. So, I mean, you can get viewers if you're just streaming at the right time. Awesome. Everyone, thank you for being here. Okay. And I'm getting angry. And I love screaming at people. Okay. But I like that people are here. I like that people are watching me. So, thanks for watching. Appreciate all you. Sub to me right now. Understand if I decide to wage war on Israel on all supporters of Israel, do you understand how many people I could kill before your rules would stop me?
Directly.
What do you mean? What do you mean before? Obviously, it takes effort for the UN to stop Israel from committing war crimes. That's how that works. Do you think? I'm confused what your point is.
Hit by bombs. 160.
I don't understand. You think we should say guilty until proven innocent? You think we should, in any war, just assume that that person is committing genocide? What's your standard of evidence? I don't.
5 of those were in areas designated for evacuation by the Israeli military.
I don't know what the areas designated for evacuation means. You'd have to explain what it means.
Just days after October 7th, the Jerusalem Post reported that IDF Air Force Chief Brigadier General Omer Tischler said the IDF is not targeting civilians as Hamas did in mass numbers on Saturday and continues to do with rocket fire. There is always a military target, but we are not being surgical. Tactically, he explained that if in past
it's a failure in proportionality, which is bad.
Of fighting
it's not
with Gaza,
genocide.
the Air Force would target 1 or 2 Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad targets or high-ranking officers at a time. Now it is targeting whole neighborhoods of terrorist targets all at once. So, targeting not only senior Hamas commanders, but also simple junior officers, killing...
Also, again, the current security threat posed to you determines how surgical you have to be. So if there's a very low security threat posed to you, you have to be incredibly surgical, because there's a very low security threat posed to you. If there's a much larger security threat posed to you, then acting faster and with more force becomes more necessary. So you can be less surgical. That's how international law works. There's a feasibility component of most things under international law.
Entire families, bombing civilian infrastructure just to instill fear in the population, bombing the south of Gaza despite designating it a safe zone, renders the argument...
Again, they did not designate it a safe zone.
...of human shield so asinine that it's barely worthy of any mention at all. But what makes it even more utterly stupid is that the...
I care about practical reality, not bureaucrats in the UN. I don't care if killing thousands of children counts as a genocide. I think the first thing to do is end the killing of children. You understand? With your logic, no war of self-defense could ever be thought, because you just say, I think the first thing we should do is stop killing each other. Like, if Ukraine gets invaded by Russia, I think the first thing we should do is stop children killing each other. So Ukraine, just lay down and surrender. Like, I don't understand. Hamas operates underneath schools and hospitals consistently. Israel is not true.
Deaths and the conditions calculated to bring about those deaths are by no means limited to those bombings, but also starvation as well. A deliberate policy, which by definition does not distinguish between military or civilian, man or woman, woman or child.
Again,
it is a pure...
I would be very, very critical of Israel, okay? Israel should have fucking let more aid in sooner, okay? It was fucked up to the end. The fact that we had to airdrop aid into Gaza, that was fuck. There's no reason we should have to airdrop aid into Gaza, because Israel has the power to let more aid, humanitarian aid in through the crossings, okay? But guess what? Israel has finally let more aid into Gaza, okay? They finally opened more crossings. We're building that temporary pier, okay?
Purely indiscriminate civilian punishment measure calculated to bring about death to the whole of the population. In other words, genocide. As Albanese sadly reports, Israel's heightened blockade of Gaza has caused death by starvation.
And also, the blockade was heightened on northern Gaza. There was a complete siege in northern Gaza. Yeah, but not in southern Gaza.
10 children daily by impeding access to vital supplies.
I'm almost certain that 10 children daily have not starved to death in Gaza.
A report from Oxfam sheds light on the, as they put it plainly, deliberate restrictive actions that have led to a severe and systemic dysfunctionality in the delivery of aid.
Oh, Jesus, my chat's yelling at each other.
Conditions we have observed in Gaza are beyond catastrophic, and we have not only seen failure by Israel...
Oh my god, Israel... When you say Israel knew about October 7th beforehand, Israel had plans, or intercepted plans for October 7th, right? The New York Times did a big article on this. Hamas makes these type of plans all the time, okay? The reason they dismissed it, and it was bad that they dismissed it, was because they thought it was way too ambitious for Hamas to ever do. They didn't do it because they wanted to get attacked. It was negligence, okay? They didn't think Hamas was capable of performing such an attack, so they didn't take it seriously. Intelligence agencies make these type of like security threat reports all the time, and 99% of the time they get dismissed and nothing happens, okay?
Israeli authorities to meet their responsibility to facilitate and support international aid efforts, but in fact seen active steps being taken to hinder and undermine such aid efforts. Examples include, on December 21st, an Israeli airstrike targeted the Karem Abu Salem border crossing area in southern Gaza, killing the director responsible for coordinating humanitarian aid entry. This attack not only disrupted the critical flow of aid, but also raised concerns over violations of international humanitarian law, which mandates the protection of humanitarian personnel.
You would have to... Were they trying to target something else, or were they just killing this aid worker to kill the aid worker? Hold on. 21 December. There were one or there are multiple countries. They withdrew forces and left the alert at 0. We're not all stupid. Talking about the warnings they had for their October 7th attack? Hold on. Karem Abu. You're programmed from birth to kill Jews. Well, Automod did not like that one. But let's Dolphin Man, chill out a little bit, okay? Working, blah blah blah. Part of an ongoing systematic. Okay. I'm curious. Were they? Do any of these mention if they were trying to strike something else? Israel strike the senior border official. 3 other Rafah crossing. Wait, is this even the same one? Chill out a bit. Bro, oh my god. I'm telling him to chill it, bro. Me telling him to chill out, okay? It was a service to you. I was being nice to you. I'm doing a good job moderating my chat. Bad gateway. I was trying to... What were they trying to do with the attack is what my question is. Okay, who knows?
The Karem Abu Salem crossing has much wider capacity to scan and process cargo, but Israeli authorities have not made it fully operational. The Eretz crossing remains closed, making it impossible to reach North Gaza without having
Well, northern Gaza, again, the complete siege on northern Gaza.
Across the entire strip under constant Israeli bombing. Of course, I've reported here before, including in December, Human Rights Watch describing the Israeli government using starvation of civilians as a method of warfare in the Gaza Strip, which is a war crime. That Israeli forces are deliberately blocking the delivery of water, food, and fuel.
I mean, again, it's a blockade, so... like, it is technically true, they are blocking the delivery of some stuff, but they're doing that out of security concerns.
Just in November 2023, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reported 7 water facilities across the Gaza Strip were directly hit and sustained major damage, including 3 sewage pipelines in Gaza City, 2 water reservoirs, and 2 water wells. Euromed Human Rights Monitor had themselves reported, also in November, that the Israeli war of starvation has taken very dangerous turns, including cutting off all food supplies to the northern half and bombing and destroying factories, bakeries, food stores, water stations, and tanks throughout the entire
I'll have to prove intent. These really wars are very dangerous terms, include cutting off all food supplies in northern half again, the complete siege in northern Gaza, because they were worried about Hamas getting supplies in northern Gaza. That's why they ordered an evacuation in northern Gaza.
enclave.
Bombing and destroying factories, bakeries, food stores, water stations, yeah, blah, blah, blah.
Speaking of Euromed Monitor, they actually released a new report just days ago, which has apparently not been reported on widely. The apt title reads, "Killing Starving Palestinians, Targeting Aid Trucks is a Deliberate Israeli Policy to Reinforce Famine in the Gaza Strip." They detail numerous instances of Israel targeting aid convoys, those waiting for aid, and
Targeting. Oh, thanks, my dolphin.
officials responsible for overseeing not only its distribution, but also guarding convoys to avoid looting, examples that can hardly be attributed to Hamas using human shields. The situation has gotten so...
That doesn't... The fact that it could be entirely possible that there were times where, like, Israel committed a massacre or whatever. That's entirely possible. Israel's definitely done a lot of bad things. Look up the Great March of Return. Israel killed like 200 civilians for no reason. That was very bad, okay? Again, that doesn't prove Hamas isn't using human shields. That's a total non sequitur. Why would they let convoys in and blow them up? Because they're double evil. They're double evil. They want to give Gazans false hope, okay? They are so evil and they want to kill the aid convoys.
So dire, Euromed Monitor write, that between January 11th and March 23rd, 2024, Euromed Monitor documented the killing of 563 Palestinians and the injury of 1,523 others due to the Israeli army's targeting of people waiting for aid, distribution centers,
targeting of people waiting for aid,
and those responsible for organizing, protecting, and distributing aid in the Gaza Strip.
The word targeting implies the purpose of the attack is to kill those aid workers.
Evidence suggests that Israel intentionally perpetrates these crimes, including direct military attacks on humanitarian aid and civilians, as part of a deliberate and overarching policy.
I'd love to see the evidence for that. This where did I spell it? Okay. It's not on here. What is he quoting from here? This. It's not in here either. Is it in here? Oh, it's in this PDF. Here it is. Evidence suggests Israel intentionally purposes this crime, including direct attacks on humanitarian aid and civilians, as part of deliberate and overreaching policy. This is evident from the systematic pattern and regular, almost daily recurrence of Israel's commission of these crimes, as well as the high number of victims affected by them. One of the most dangerous forms, Jesus, can I even show that on Twitch? One of the most dangerous forms of unlawful killing and executions carried out by the Israeli army against Palestinian civilians. Recently, so systematic targeting civilian gatherings in humanitarian aid trucks with direct gunfire, quadcopters, Israeli tank shells, especially on the Kuwait and Nablus roundabouts, south of Gaza City, which have been dubbed the flower massacres. Again, fuck, I should have. Am I pro-Iran? What do you think, man? You think I'm pro-Iran? Legit up some Muslim nation nukes, Jesus fucking Christ, nukes Israel. They all deserve to be unalived. Just my opinion as a white Western person. Wow, thanks for the first time chat, Poppy Smoking Ninja. Jesus fucking Christ, man. Oh my god, okay. I need to read more into fucking flower massacres. It looked like the flower massacre was a big mistake by the Israelis, but it's just, you'd have to prove fucking intent, okay. Israeli army opened fire on a dozen people who gathered to trying to receive aid. At least 3 people were killed and injured in the attack. Are they referring? Okay. 80 dead, 200 injured. Jesus, this chat is really toxic. I've curated a horrible community. Oh no.
This is evident from the systematic pattern and regular, almost daily recurrence of Israel's commission of these crimes, as well as the high number of...
There's one Israeli tell you otherwise. Oh, Israel. Oh, you sent me this before. I'm pretty sure. Israel's helped spawn Hamas. Why can't I read it? Hello, clean paywall blocker. What the fuck? Why can't I read it? I have a paywall blocker. I should be able to read it. 12-foot ladder. Please disable JSN. Damn it. It's fucked. Oh my god, oh my chat is so toxic. Okay. Guys, both of you. Look at Vegeta. Vegeta, whoa! Look at Vegeta, okay? Poppy Smoking Ninja, I'm gonna need you to stop advocating for the deaths of people in my chat. A Dragon, listen, it's understandable by you're upset. I get it. But it's just someone on the internet. They could be a Russian bot for all you know. In fact, let's just assume that they're a Russian bot. So let's just chill out. Let's just chill out, everybody. Yeah.
Of victims affected by them. They provide an exhaustive timeline. These are among the most noteworthy examples provided in the report, which I'll include here. On targeting starving civilians waiting for humanitarian aid, on January 11th, 2024, the Israeli army killed approximately 50 Palestinians and wounded dozens of others when quadcopter aircraft opened fire on Palestinian crowds who had gathered to receive quantities of flour loaded by UN trucks on Al-Rashid Street in west of Gaza City. On January 22nd, the Israeli army fired artillery shells at hundreds of hungry civilians who had gathered on Salah al-Din.
Again, I don't... It's like we have videos of Hamas stealing aid. Yeah, so it's like... Fuck, where's the fucking videos? I know we have videos of it. This is how Hamas steals humanitarian aid from us. Literally filmed. Here it is. He's like we have videos of this type of stuff. It's like, again, just do the like perfect weapons thing. Like if Israel had perfect weapons, there's no reason to believe that they would have killed any civilians. Or if Hamas had perfect weapons, there's reason to believe that they would kill all the Jews.
Road in southeast of Gaza City. February 25th, 10 Palestinians were killed and 20 others injured after being targeted by Israeli army forces while waiting for aid trucks near the Nablus roundabout on Al-Rashid Street in the southwest of Gaza City. On February 29th, 118 people were killed and 760 others injured on Al-Rashid Street, south of Gaza City, while waiting for aid supplies. The Euromed Monitor field team documented the brutal Israeli massacre of Palestinians, confirming that Israeli tanks opened fire and shells at around 4:30 a.m. directly into a crowd of thousands of hungry civilians. The civilians had been waiting hours for aid trucks to arrive near the Nablus roundabout on Al-Rashid Street. On March 2nd, one Palestinian was killed and more than 20 others injured after being targeted while waiting for aid supplies at Al-Rashid Street in Gaza City. On March 3rd, several people were killed and injured after being shot while waiting for aid supplies at the Kuwait roundabout in Gaza City. On March 9th, at least 2 Palestinians were killed and 18 others injured when Israeli army forces targeted crowds of people waiting for aid at the Kuwait and Nablus roundabouts. On March 11th, 9 Palestinians were killed and others injured after Israeli army forces opened fire at those waiting for aid trucks at the Kuwait roundabout southeast of Gaza City. On March 13th, 6 Palestinians were killed and others injured while waiting for aid supplies to arrive at the Kuwait roundabout on the outskirts of Gaza. On March 14th, Israeli army forces opened heavy fire on thousands of civilians who had gathered near the Kuwait roundabout at the Salah al-Din road in southern Gaza City using tanks, helicopters, and drones. The shooting left more than 80 dead and 200 injured, with a number of them left in critical condition. The next morning, Israeli army forces opened fire on residents who returned to the scene in an attempt to retrieve the bodies of the victims. Additionally, Euromed write, Israel has targeted humanitarian aid distribution centers.
Again, you'd have to actually do some investigation to establish the facts on the ground. It's like, why did Israel feel the need to like shoot in these cases? And it's like, it's possible that there weren't legitimate reasons, and they did just massacre civilians for no fucking reason. Okay, it's possible, but it's probably due to poor training if they do that, because they've done stuff like that before with the like March It Returned. Okay, Jesus, it just seems wild.
Including on February 7th, when 13 Palestinians were killed and several others injured when a water distribution truck was bombed in Gaza City as people gathered to fill their water barrels. On March 13th, Israeli aircraft bombed the UNRWA-run humanitarian aid distribution headquarters in the administrative district of Rafah while employees were distributing flour to the residents. The bombing killed 6 civilians, including a child and an UNRWA employee, and injured...
Wasn't the UNRWA strike, wasn't that specifically because they thought, I don't know, maybe it turned out to be false, whatever. Wasn't it because they at least thought that Hamas is operating out of that?
Several to the humanitarian aid distribution...
My turn to use UNRWA. Sit. Hold on. UNRWA says it really hit aid center, killing 1 staffer, wounding 22 others.
On Israeli settlements in the West Bank. That's
nothing to do with that. Okay. Israeli Defense Forces, when asked by CBS Comment, said in a statement later Wednesday that it had killed a terrorist in a Hamas operating unit in a precisely targeted airstrike on intelligence. Yeah. Oh my God.
headquarters in the administrative district of Rafah while employees were distributing flour to the residents. The bombing killed 6 civilians, including a child and an UNRWA employee, and injured several others, including 22 UNRWA employees. On March 14th, Israeli aircraft bombed an aid distribution center run by the Ministry of Social Development in the Nusrat refugee camp in the central Gaza Strip, killing 8 people and wounding several. On March 18th, others. Israeli aircraft bombed an aid, storage, and distribution center east of Jabalia refugee camp in North Gaza Governorate, killing 2 people working in aid distribution. There's also targeting...
I know from what I've read that Hamas operates out of the Jabalia refugee camp. Like...
humanitarian aid convoys. On February 5th, Israeli forces bombed an UNRWA aid convoy heading toward northern Gaza in Deir al-Balah in the middle of the Strip, despite pre-coordinating with parties to the conflict. On February 5th, again, an aid convoy came under heavy Israeli fire while heading to northern Gaza. No casualties were reported, according to the deputy humanitarian coordinator. On March 3rd, 2 Israeli missiles bombed an aid truck in Deir al-Balah, killing 9 civilians and wounding others, including civilians gathered around it. When it comes to targeting workers distributing humanitarian aid, on January 21st...
anyone in chat wants to do exclamation point Discord, I have a Discord server. You can have this. You guys could be having this argument in the VC right now. If that interests any of you. Plus, you get notified when I stream, and I'm awesome. So you should want to do it.
Plane bombed a car carrying government employees responsible for coordinating aid entry, killing 3 people, including Ahmed Jamal Abu Mansour, head of the Emergency Committee of the Ministry of Social Development. On February 20th, an Israeli drone bombed a civilian car west of the Shabura refugee camp in Rafah, killing... On March 13th, an Israeli drone bombed a civilian car in the Kirba al-Adas neighborhood in Rafah. On March 18th, 2 aid distribution workers were killed when Israeli aircraft targeting an aid storage center east of Jabalia camp in northern Gaza. On March 19th, the Israeli army killed...
Anytime it's a Jabalia refugee camp, I know for a fact Hamas operates out of there. I know for a fact Hamas has tunnels under that.
director of the emergency committee in Western Gaza at the Kuwait roundabout in Gaza City while he was supervising aid entry and distribution. Regarding targeting those responsible for securing and protecting humanitarian aid, March 18th, 2024, the director of the Nusrat police station, Mahmoud al-Bayoumi, was killed in an Israeli bombing that targeted a car in front of the UNRWA headquarters in Nusrat in the central Gaza Strip. 3 civilians were killed in the attack, including 2 young sisters. On the evening of the same day, the Israeli army killed 30 members of the police and civilian committees charged with protecting aid trucks in an Israeli bombing near the Kuwait roundabout in southern Gaza City. This is part of Israel's policy of clearing the way for the looting of humanitarian aid and exacerbating the famine. On January 9th, the Israeli army opened heavy gunfire at a group of police officers as they attempted to secure the entry of humanitarian supplies into Gaza.
Why did they even let the aid in if they didn't want people to get it?
Members of the police and civilian committees charged with...
The only way you could argue that is to have like some conspiracy. It's like, oh, well, they're letting aid in to trick the world into thinking that Gazans are getting aid.
With protecting aid...
Why does the IDF slaughter kids? Why did some mosques? Oh my god. Oh, my chat is the worst. It's become the worst, most surface level, stupid Israel-Palestine.
In an Israeli bombing near the Kuwait roundabout in southern Gaza City. This is part of Israel's policy of clearing the way for the looting of humanitarian aid and exacerbating the famine. On January 9th, the Israeli army opened heavy gunfire at a group of police officers as they attempted to secure the entry of humanitarian supplies into Gaza City. Many of them were killed and injured during the incident. On February 6th, 6 Palestinian police officers were killed when a police vehicle guarding an aid truck was bombed in the Kirbat. The Israeli army killed Fayek al-Mabu, director of Central Police Operations. The Israeli army also killed Lieutenant Colonel Raed al-Bana, along with his wife and children, after bombing his house on March 18th.
What? Lieutenant Colonel? Isn't that... Doesn't I mean what? Lieutenant Colonel of what? Of Hamas or of Israel? Lieutenant Colonel. Raheed al Lieutenant Colonel, Director of Investigations in Northern Gaza, charged with securing the entry of aid trucks. The objective is to undermine Hamas's authorities in all respects, not merely military capabilities. He was martyred along with his wife and children following the bombing of the home by occupation forces. The objective is to undermine the Hamas authorities in all aspects, not just military. Okay, so he was a Hamas commander or whatever, but he was in charge of delivering aid. Okay.
Al-Bana was responsible for securing the entry of aid trucks into northern Gaza. Of course, they felt compelled to address Israel's attempts to evade responsibility for the massacres. Regarding the most well-known and deadliest Flower massacre at the Nablusi roundabout in the southwest of Gaza City on February 29th, Euromed Human Rights Monitor confirmed full Israeli involvement in the crime. Many victims of the massacre suffered injuries from 5.56 NATO bullets. This is a type of bullet fired from Israeli army weapons. A sample of 200 dead and injured victims revealed that they were indeed hit by this type of bullet, which was discovered and examined at the massacre site. These, simply put...
I wonder, hold on. Didn't, hi Macbeth. Flower. I don't think he did one on it. Damn.
Were clearly just people, human beings, and not simply something that can so easily be written off as human shields.
Okay. even if we assumed everything at the end of the video was an intentional massacre, that doesn't disprove that Hamas co-locates with civilians, okay?